and the clouds weren't so heavy as to threaten rain. Just before noon, he turned off the road at Faversham, and they'd lunched at the Limes. With a fair way yet to go, they hadn't dallied, which had suited him. Spending time alone with Antonia, now that his eyes had been opened, and he was so damned aware of her, physically, sexually, and in every other way, was dangerous. Even in the dubious privacy of a corner table in the ill-lit dining room, temptation had whispered. It was continuing to whisper, increasingly stridently and insistently, but he didn't yet know, hadn't yet had time to decide, just what he wanted to do. About her. With her. Not yet. Completing Drake's mission should come first. He was fairly certain of that. If the safety of the realm truly was at stake, he couldn't afford to be distracted, and Antonia now figured as a supreme distraction. The much-anticipated relief flooded him as the trees fell away and the house came into view. A Palladian facade that, to eyes accustomed to very old houses, appeared relatively new, looked out on neatly shaved lawns to the front and the left, while to the right, shrubbery nestled close with the taller trees of woods just beyond. Pressingstoke Hall appeared to be a well-kept, pleasing, but essentially unpretentious gentleman's country house. Sebastian tooled the phaeton smartly around the sweep of a circular drive, and drew the horses to a neat halt in the forecourt before a set of wide steps leading up to a pair of front doors set wide in welcome. Grooms came running, and footmen hurried from the house. Sebastian stepped down from the phaeton, handed the reins to a groom, and walked around to assist Antonia down. One footman had brought a set of steps, which he placed beside the carriage. Taking Antonia's hand, grasping her gloved fingers, Sebastian steadied her down from the high seat. As she raised her skirts, he caught a brief glimpse of the half-boots of ivory kid that hugged her ankles. He had to fight a short battle with his more primitive self before he could make himself release her hand, rather than wind her arm in his. He was there as her escort, not her protector. There was a fine line between the two, and he knew where it lay. Glancing around, he strolled at Antonia's heels across the gravel and up the steps to the front door. A tall, white-haired butler bowed them over the threshold. "Welcome to Pressingstoke Hall, Lady Antonia, Lord Ennis." As they moved inside, a cacophony of sound engulfed them. Apparently, a gaggle of guests had arrived just ahead of them, and much of the company had congregated, chatting and exclaiming, in the middle of the long front hall. The interior of the house confirmed Sebastian's assessment that the present structure was most likely less than 70 years old. The lines were simpler, more modern, without the heaviness of earlier ages. A large glazed cupola all but filled the ceiling above the front half of the hall, admitting sufficient illumination to make the hall feel light and airy. The butler raised his voice to be heard over the din. "I am Blanchard. The housekeeper is Mrs. Blanchard. Please call on us for anything you need." Antonia bestowed a smile and a thank you and moved down the hall. Sebastian nodded to the beleaguered butler and followed at her heels. Now for the moment that might just turn this exercise into a quagmire. He hadn't exchanged more than 2 words with Cecilia, Lady Ennis, since breaking off their liaison 6 years ago. As with all his dalliances, his affair with Cecilia had been exceedingly discreet, at least at the time. Later, he strongly suspected it had been Cecilia herself who had let that particular cat out of its bag. Still, she'd been